Hello. In the previous session, we used Flex model-driven development to create a Flex project in which a data model was deployed to the Experience server and the CRX content repository was used to store data. Now, many times when you're developing Flex projects, you need to be able to break out your functionality into different libraries. So in this example, we have a Flex application and we have some default code that was generated from the data model. And this code is helping us, for example, get the CRUD and filter operations that we used before. But if I'm a developer who wants to share this with somebody else who's also building a Flex application, I don't want them to have to recreate the model themselves. So I want to make a library project and get all of this generated code from the data model into that library project. So let's get started. So to do that, I'm just going to create a new library project here in Flash Builder. Now, after I've created the library project, I actually need to modify its properties. This is because I want the library project to have access to the developer SDK used for the Experience server. So I go to Properties, and I find Adobe Experience Services, and I select Enable Experience Services for this library project. I could also enable UX components, but this time I just want to use data modeling and not UX components. Flash Builder will remind me of the changes that are going to be made to my overall build environment, and I'll accept that. Now we can also see that the library project has been decorated even with the ADEP logo to remind us that it has been enabled for the Experience server. But as yet there is no source actually in this library project. All of the work that we've done before is still in the Flex project that we used in the previous example. So what I'm going to do quite simply is take the package that was generated in order to create those CRUD and filter operations whenever I deployed my model, and I'm just going to copy it into my new library project. So now I have the same package here in my library project, and all I need to do now is to rebuild that library project. Now that my project has been rebuilt, I can actually see that I now have a library SWC file ready to share with other developers. So now that we have that library available, let's use it in a new Flex application in a way that another developer might use in order to gain access to the functionality that we built previously using model-driven development. So to do that, I'm just going to make a fresh Flex application. Again, we'll make sure that Experience server is selected by default and choose all of the other defaults. Now in my sample application, I want to make use of the library that I created in my library project. So to do that for demonstration purposes, I'm actually going to go and select the literal file location of that library. I can do that by going to the project settings, going to the build path, and adding this as a literal SWC reference. We can now see that the library is available as one of the SWCs used in the build path for this project. So now we have the SWC library containing the service and type from the previous project imported as a library into this new Flex application. Now the initial MXML of this application is empty, and so to simulate a developer who's going to consume that SWC library, I'm just going to take the same MXML user interface code from the previous application. So to do that, I can just take sample application and put it in here. Now because this application did not use a data model, it imported the SWC library that was produced through the library project. We need to import the classes that we need to use in our UI implementation. So I can do that with import sample application. We're getting that from the SWC Library import. Let's take the service, and also let's get the type. The rest of the MXML we can leave the same based on the previous implementation, but this time our application will be using the car service that it got through consumption of the SWC library, not by building another data model inside this project. So let's give it a go. So here we see, as before, the Flex application is showing us content read from the data services destination on the experience server, and I can also begin to add more new entries in the repository. So with this example, we've taken a project used with a data model and used it to arrive at a SWC library project. And then we have used that SWC library project in a fresh application where the SWC library is also used to get access to the data service for writing content and reading content from the repository. Thank you.